This is my house. This one right here. We moved in 26 years ago. And we did the floors and we put in windows and doors and painted and just put, my grandchildren loved it. My son and my daughter-in-law, my family, we hosted Christmas Eve and Christmas Day here and everybody was here. My little house that I loved.
Check this out. It's exactly how I said it would play out. The investors are coming in like locusts.
Right, it's dramatic.
I'm negotiating almost a dozen deals right now on land in the Palisades, much faster than I ever thought I would be doing. People are already trying to sell their dirt, knowing that they're not going to go back there to home builders that will then build their house and either keep it or sell it.
Exactly. You have a bunch of people, the property's just burnt down. They thought this is where they were going to go to school. I was just out there talking to some of these people. They thought their kids were going to go to this great school. It's all burned down. Now what?
To 65 to 70% of the people who lived in the Palisades won't go back there. What are they going to do? They're going to be the house that's finished and then live amongst 100 other houses being developed. The kids that are 5 years old, they're going to be 10 years old by the time it's done. They're not going to go to the same school.
See, home builders, investors, they know it's going to take them 5 years to rebuild. I don't care what anybody says, oh, a couple years, change the regulations. No way. It's going to take 5 years to resource all the luxury stuff that goes into these houses. The permitting, which is mind-boggling. The rules for building around the water that they're going to institute, they're going to change the way a lot of these properties are built. Steel and concrete. It's the way it's going to be.
In my 20-year career, the phone has not stopped ringing, not in a good way, not the type of business you want to be doing. We have over 1,500 new renters just locally. I'm about 10 minutes away from the Palisades. We got a lot of people in this new market. There's an entire off-market business that's being done right now.
It's like I said before, this is one of the greatest land grabs of all times. They created a chaos. They created an environment for people to say, I quit. They had a process that was too hard to navigate. And now people are going to sell their properties for pennies on the dollar. Happens every time. And these politicians will sit there with their smug faces on the nightly news and talk about how the president did it or how somebody else did it. It was never their fault. When the basics of governing that local area, they didn't do. Completely negligent. And you really got to say, in this environment, it was an entirely Democratic government in California with a Democratic president, and you can't blame the other side. One party had complete control of it. So ask yourself that. Comment down below what you think about that. Make some discord. Let's disagree in the comment section and see, were they at fault? Who was at fault? I want to hear what you got to say. These people said, I've had enough. You know what? Take the land. I probably inherited it. It's paid for, whatever. We're getting out of here. The place burns down. And the key word here is negligence. And I just wonder, are they going to be able to sue the state or the county for not maintaining the forest, not putting the reservoir water in place, not maintaining the infrastructure, or having a fire department that's resourced with the money they pay property tax for, or local taxes, actually maintaining the fire department? First responders. I watched a video by Van Nysat this morning about his experience in the fire. And that was wild. Like, it was a great video, great editing, but the firsthand account of it was just, and I was there. If you watch my last California video, I was there in just south of LA, in and out of LA, and I could see the fires when I got off the plane. I could see the smoke. It was wild. But the fact here, things have changed. These people are not going to go back to where they're going. And if you happen to want to move to Florida, let me know. I can help you out with that as a real estate agent. Email down below.
No one can find a rental. It's insane. People are trying to make deals with empty houses that were supposed to be for sale. We're in uncharted waters here. Ordinances are changing by the hour, which is good because people are trying to figure out a way to speed the build process to get these people back to normal life. But also at the same time, even somebody like me, I'm learning as we go.
I watched Dennis Quaid be interviewed during the fire and his house was burning down. Same thing with Mel Gibson, some of the other celebrities. They were in tears. And when you're 65, 70 years old, the thought of building a new house that'll take 3 to 5 to probably 10 years to rebuild, you just don't have that kind of time. You're just going to cash out, to whoever will pay you for it and move away. And if you do want to build, picture this. It'll be the only house built on this entire stretch. The entire infrastructure is going to be digging, hammering, jackhammering, pile driving. When I was selling a house on Navarre Beach not too long ago, they were knocking pilings into the house next door of the house I was selling. And you could literally, because it's on the beach, you got to drive pilings. You could literally see the TV just bounce off the wall as this crew was hammering the pilings into the ground to build the house on it next door. Well, picture that for 6 months, a year, 2 years until that house is built. All the hammering, the construction workers next door, the entire neighborhood full of contractors. Don't get me started on where all the contractors are going to stay in that area or where they're going to eat. Navarre Beach a couple years ago was nothing but contractors. It was just trucks driving in the sand everywhere. And if you're wanting to pay $5 million for a house, $10 million for a house, that's not the environment you want to live in. These people are going to leave Newport Beach. They're going to go down to Balboa Island. They're going to go down to some of these great places. And some are going to come to Florida because we have no income tax.
I'm actually involved in a group of realtors that have this list that people are putting together. There's over 2,000 units just on this list of people who had different prices late December, and now they are higher in January. That's a big issue for multiple different reasons, and it's very obvious. This is not like you can hide this. This is public record. People can look what it was on for a couple weeks ago, and it's a big problem that we're dealing with, and it's really a...
You really got to ask yourself here, California has these rules on price gouging. Well, when there is something that happened like this, you really got to ask yourself a question. Supply, demand. And if somebody's willing to offer their house up for rent, shouldn't that person be able, those two people, to have a contract if the two parties are wanting to do this transaction? It's better than living in the sand or not having a place to stay. And California has created a housing crisis through their negligence for not maintaining their area and their forestry and having these fires, but also the laws and the way that the insurance works on these properties. We have 100,000 people that are displaced, maybe more. Fire's still burning. They got to live somewhere. And you have to create an incentive for people to want to rent that extra house they had instead of Airbnb it or instead of this, and to say, oh, well, you can only elevate the price by 10% when half the city burned down. You got to really think about that. Same way with some of these codes and ordinances. You have to create an incentive for somebody to want to create housing for somebody, or they're just going to leave the state. They're going to go where they can get housing and where it is available. And what do you think about this? What do you think about, in the comments down below, about the situation here? Do you think the government needs to get out of the way and people provide housing for people? Do you think there should be a rent cap? Because odds are the insurance is going up on that property too. So when insurance goes up and you can only increase rent by 10%, and the market is saying that it should be double that because people are paying it, the market is the market. Well, what do you think about that? And as a real estate agent, you know, a lot of these agents are going to want to stay out of these deals to help people find that housing because of the price gouging that goes on, because they don't want to be in a dirty environment. So what's that going to create? For sale by owners. Now, you'll say, oh, well, they'll litigate it. Will they? Will they? Takes money to litigate, takes time. These people just want a place to live. If you are right now without a house because of this fire, comment down below, correct me. I want to hear Discord if I'm wrong or if I'm right, or what does the comment section say? Because there's a lot of great information in the comment section.
And we don't even know what's going to happen at the end of the day.
Well, I get the price pressure of supply and demand in this situation. That was going to happen. But the state made the 10% rule. How are they getting around the 10% rule?
Well, we're going to see what the punishment is, right? Because we don't even know what that is yet. People who have learned about it, like us, for instance, we've had meetings with our brokerage. We can't even take those listings if that's the case.
So the list is interesting. Totally doable. You just pull it off the internet, off the MLS. The thing about this is, well, wouldn't they just sell it? So would you rather them rent it to people, or just say, you know what, I can get double it for selling it, or I can only raise the price by 10% as a rental. So what would I do? I'd probably just sell it, because right now there's such a housing crisis there, but they're just going to balloon the price because supply and demand, right? So are these officials going to come out and stop that? Like, hey, you can't raise the price. It's the appraised value before. You can't, from right here on, you can't raise the price. Now, what's that going to do to buying real estate in California? There's so many questions here to say that if two parties are willing to pay for something, that the government should be able to come in and say, no, can't do that. And what are the appraisers going to do? What are the appraisers going to do on the non-cash deals? And then are the insurance companies going to actually issue policies so they can close to close a real estate transaction with a note, with a mortgage? You have to be able to bind insurance, and insurance is a crisis right now. I read in the state of California, 20% of the deals fell through because of insurance. And what do you think it's going to do now? The state caught on fire because of negligence of the government. There's got to be a lawsuit in this somewhere.
So it'll be interesting to see. What I'm hearing is if you were on for $10,000 a month, for example, and you raised it to $20,000 a month, that tenant, once they're in that house, I would be very surprised if they're not able to get the entire difference of that $10,000 back if they go out and hire an attorney. But there's gonna be so much of it. You have to realize we signed $250 million worth of listings in the past week. We usually do that in a month and a half. There's more properties flooding the market, both for sale and for lease. I have 50 friends just personally with houses that I've sold that have lost their houses completely, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to get their family to some type of normalcy. You can't live in a hotel for that long. You got to get back to reality a little bit. I will also tell you, Chris, I walked the Palisades. I walked Malibu. For people watching around the world and seeing this, I'm telling you, it is 100 times worse when you walk those areas. It gives you a stomach ache. You can't even wrap your head around it. Neighborhoods gone. Think about the Palisades. This was that all-American neighborhood. Families, children.
So I wonder, does it matter that it wasn't leased prior to? Now, like if it was prior to, and then they, the lease was coming due, and then they raised it double. Is that different in the state of California, because it's different than here in Florida, than just being advertised as that much rent and then raising it? It seems odd because there wasn't a contract. What do you think? Comment down below if you're a California real estate agent.
So because obviously some people with the Motley fire, this could be their second time rebuilding with Malibu and stuff like that.
It's disheartening.
Who's going to move to the Palisades, or are we going to see that city kind of
The calls
end?
that I've got have been across the board of, I'm 70 years old, I just evacuated for my last time, I'm out.
I do think some of what Josh is saying is a little bit of real estate speak. A little bit of sales snobbed on top of it. But what he has to say, I think, has a lot of merit. And that there's a lot of people that are not going to want to rebuild. That there are a lot of investors, hedge funds, mutual funds, large land holding companies that are going to come in. They're going to get that property, pennies on the dollar, because the people just don't want to take the time to rebuild. Some of them have been burned out before, and they don't want to do it again. And they know that the government is not going to keep the reservoirs full because of a smelt fish or some other type of mouse. That's a full investigation going on. It's very interesting. Like, I noticed when I was out there before that everything was very dry. I mean, it hadn't rained there since like October where I was. There's a lot of questions California has to answer. There's a lot of policies they have to answer. The trick to this is they're going to have to loosen the regulations on both environmental control and make a choice between the smelt fish and filling reservoirs, between bureaucracy and whatever they got going on. They're going to have to say, we're going to build out of concrete and steel. We're going to relax the environmental regulations. Look, these houses burning down put more toxins and trash and debris and environmental hazards into that water, into the local area, into the environment than probably any of their regulations ever solved. All that red stuff that was dropping from those airplanes all over the sides of those mountains to stop this fire probably put so much junk into the water and into those hillsides and coated all those animals with that junk that's sitting there probably trying to lick it off of them right now. It's mind-boggling how this has panned out. For the politicians to be on vacation out of the country, for the fire chief to tell us how short they were on everything, and for all the budget cuts that has came out since then, it's mind-boggling how this is not criminally negligence what the politicians did in these areas. But you know what? They're going to ask for a bailout from the federal government, which is already happening. They're going to get their $250 billion to pay for everything. They're going to flood it with cash. We're going to get caught with inflation later. Everything's going to go up. Prices are going to go up in California. It's going to keep going up. They took inventory out of the market. This is wild. What do you think is going to happen? Comment down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're looking to move from California or looking to buy or sell here on the Gulf Coast of Florida or Alabama, I can make that happen. The prices here on the Gulf Coast are way better than California. You can buy a super mansion for half of what it costs out there, and no state income tax. See you guys in the next video. My heart goes out with you if you were caught in this, and I'll see you guys later.